Correct.
Here I think on page 218, you talk about Latin America, the School of the Americas, and you say here the United States military has been running the school for decades, teaching Latin American military officers methods of counterinsurgency, psychological warfare, and torture.
Yes. Well, in fact, my husband Jerry Colby and I, when we were on our trip to Latin America in 1976, was it 76, 77? I believe that's when it was. We actually went to Bolivia, and we ended up meeting the founder of the School of America's Watch. He was a missionary, and his name is Father Roy Bourgeois. At the time, he was serving the poor in Bolivia, and that's why we talked to him, because he knew a lot about the fate of indigenous people in that country, which also has part of Bolivia has the Amazon within it. So we had gone to meet him. Later, he was tortured. He finally got out of Bolivia and eventually formed what's called the School of the Americas Watch. And he's a Maryknoll priest and an extremely dedicated man. So every year there's a vigil that takes place in Georgia where the school is located. It has a new name like Western Hemisphere, I don't know, International Center, WHINSEC, whatever. I can't remember the exact words of the acronym. But the point is that it does train Latin American military in the dark arts, let us say. And torture has always been one of them, assassination and so on. I mean, it's appalling. It's right here in our own country. So when you hear this whole uproar about torture, and you hear American politicians saying, we do not torture, well, sad to say, our government has been torturing people for a long time. It's just that it became official policy, openly acknowledged by the Bush administration.
Getting back to the subject of foreign aid, we hear a lot now about the misfortune in Haiti, and we're asked to contribute money to that. And I recently read that 99 cents out of every dollar that we contribute toward Haiti goes towards sending the American military into Haiti. And it seems to me this is another example of this foreign aid for our own benefit. We're taking the opportunity of their misfortune to invade them and conquer the country.
Well, I had not heard that statistic, and so if that is so, that's very disturbing. Although, you know, nothing surprises me terribly these days. Although I do get upset about it. So if that's the case, I mean, I think there will be a number of questions about how the United States handled the whole Haiti situation. And tragically speaking, one of the things that really disturbed me was I have this sort of rule of thumb, and this is the journalist in me, that when there's a big crisis that happens, I try to stay very much glued to television and radio during the first 24 to 48 hours, because that's when you get eyewitness reports, and you have people sort of speaking off the cuff, or they may be upset, and they'll say things which may give you hints about what's going on, and then later on the cover-up starts. So I remember listening to BBC, I think it was the day after the earthquake, and here was this guy, I think he was an American, and he was saying, well, there's a silver lining to this earthquake, and that is that we were just starting to think about how to redevelop Haiti and improve its infrastructure and so on. And this lucky guy got on a plane about, I don't know, 2 hours before the earthquake. And I mean, the BBC fellow was interviewing him, saying, "Boy, that was fortunate for you." And he said, "Well, yeah, it was really fortunate." In any event, they're already talking about remaking Haiti the way that the talk was going on about what happened in New Orleans. I mean, the way the United States has exploited a crisis is shocking, really. And the military there is now in full force, isn't it?
Yes.
And in fact, I remember I even listened to talk shows like McLaughlin Report. I listened to Sunday talk shows. And McLaughlin is conservative. I would say he's sort of center, leaning a little bit to the right, and also an old Jesuit priest. So he's very sharp. And he asked folks, his guests, to make a prediction with what would happen to Haiti. And he said, I remember him saying that there will soon be a large military base constructed in Haiti. And he said, he asked the other guests, what's the chances of a military base being constructed? And I can't remember within the time limit, but it was fairly soon. And most of his guests were clueless. He said, 1 to 10, what's the chance of a military base? And they all went around and guessed. And so when he said 10 out of 10, he likes to play these games. That's the possibility. So he obviously is on to something.
So we could have another Guantanamo in Haiti.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Ugh.
They'll have another place to send people to be tortured and detained without trial.
Well, there's also, I think, I'm not sure, somewhere, I think I read that there may be some offshore oil resources around Haiti. I mean, when you send that huge amount of military in there, is it just there to keep order, or is there a broader agenda? I think people should be following that very carefully. We know that there's offshore oil around Cuba. I mean, I've become very oil-centric in my focus. You know, the age of oil, that was the subtitle of our book on Latin America, because we really began to understand how important conquering oil reserves is to foreign powers. It's what we call the Great Game, and it goes on all over the world. Most of it is subterranean. Most of us don't hear about it because it's considered a national security item, but that's certainly the reason we went into Iraq. And now that there's these concerns about peak oil, the competition is getting even more intensified between foreign governments and also between different oil companies. So that's the game. It's happening as we speak.
It's interesting to hear you, a journalist, say that you focus in on the reporting right after an incident happens, because maybe we get more truth then than we do later on. I know that happened after the 9/11 accident. I remember watching TV as 9/11 was happening, and Dan Rather got on there and said, these buildings are coming down just like a controlled demolition.
Oh, he said that too?
Yeah.
Dan
Yes.
Rather? I know there were people who said that, yeah.
I'm not sure whether it was Dan Rather, but it was the main reporter. I think it was Dan Rather. I'm not sure about that. But they never said that afterwards.
Oh, no. I mean,
they said that was the first hour, and after that, never again.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens. So that's just a little tip to viewers if they want to know what's going on. Watch the news for 24 hours.